All right, guys, welcome into episode 45 of Coffee and Chel, our Metro Division preview, where we are going to go over all of the teams in the Metro Division and give our kind of preview for the upcoming season. I'm Sleeves, joined by my two co-hosts, Kesso and Padre. And guys, it's been a fun start. We did our first preview last week. Kesso, a little bit different to cover the real NHL. I like it.
I'm trying here.
Yeah, also with your baby, are you struggling today? Is today a tough day?
You know what? Last night was a little tough. Actually, no, the night before. I'm losing track of days. That's the thing because I haven't worked in 2 weeks, and I just every single day is like a Saturday.
Just surviving.
Just surviving. That's pretty much what it is. Padre knows all about it.
Oh yeah, I'm still doing it, and she's 3, so I feel it. And I'll be doing it here in another month with a new one, just like you.
Oh, boys. I'm going to have to... man, I don't know.
And I'm still going to dominate the biggies.
Let's go. That's it. We got to remind these kids. All right, guys. Let's get right into it. On the left-hand side, we'll go from worst to best last year in the Metro Division. And we will start off with the Philadelphia Flyers. And I'm not going to lie. So last offseason, just my initial thoughts, I respect a team when they do not get the results. After the COVID year, they surprised, they did well in the playoffs, in the COVID bubble. And then they were pretty awful. Going into the season, I think they were expected to at least make the playoffs or contend. They were awful the year prior to last. They changed like half their roster in the offseason, making some big trades and signings like Rasmus Ristolainen, as well as Ryan Ellis. That didn't go well last year. So let's talk about the additions and subtractions first for the Flyers. Padre, you start.
Yeah, I mean, the Ryan Ellis thing last year, I think, was one of the biggest things that really hurt them, honestly, because I watched him so many years in Nashville. He was such a good, solid defenseman, and there's like rumors that he may never come back, which is kind of why I think you saw them go out and get Tony DeAngelo just to help their D pairings and stuff like that. And DeAngelo's a stud. I know he's a hot topic. People don't like him, political views or not, whatever. He's still a good defenseman. The guy, anytime you got a guy who can put 50-plus points up in the NHL as a defenseman, is a stud. And adding Nick Delorier this offseason, I know it's a little pricey. I watched him in the Blues and Wild series, and he was kind of a non-factor, to be honest with you. But for most of the year, he's one of those rare guys that's still in the league that can literally beat the brakes off you and skate and play. But fitting in, the biggest addition this offseason, let's be honest, is Tortorella.
Yeah, Torts. Did you see his quote? Did you see that?
What was the quote? I missed
it. He went on a radio station, and he's like, we're not going to do anything until this locker room gets resolved. And he's just like, yeah, like off the ice, we got issues. Like, that's basically the synopsis of it. It was like, all right, it took like a month for Torts to just put his stamp on it. So he went in and just called out his entire locker room. I don't know the ins and outs as to why there were issues, but I don't know. That was pretty jarring to hear. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, for sure. I look at this team like Philly, so I'm a Penguins fan, so obviously there's some bias there. Mm-hmm. I look at this team, it's like a band of misfits with like always the overpayments in free agency or acquiring players. They're always too good to get like a generational player in the draft or even like a really good player in the draft. The Ristolainen extension, like acquisition last year, is turning out to be, I know, like, so I'm probably the hockey like numbers nerd on the podcast when it comes to like all that stuff, and I'll be glad to admit that. Ristolainen, that was known prior to the acquisition. Like, this is probably going to be awful, and then you have that extension. Like, was that last year? I believe.
Yeah.
So right it just him,
yeah. So I don't understand it. The cap situation that they were in didn't allow them to land Gaudreau. So
that was the biggest failure of the offseason.
That was
like
gigantic.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah,
that's embarrassing. Like, because Fletcher knew Johnny literally would have played there for less money. It's like a known fact. We know a guy in the community, won't even say his name. He played high school hockey with them. He's told me for years he will come back here and play if they want him. The fact that they didn't make space for him is amazing.
They didn't even reach out. Like, they didn't even try.
Because they knew that they were done. Like, and I will say this, like, yeah, it was hard to move contracts out at this current juncture with like COVID and whatnot, but for years now, you could have lined yourself up for this. Like, it wasn't like it was, all of a sudden Johnny Gaudreau's going to be a free agent. Like, I mean, anybody else could have saw this coming. I don't know. It just amazes me that they didn't do anything about it.
Do you think this is like, so the last 2 seasons have been major disappointments. Do you think this had anything to do with Bedard? Like, do you think this is another like Chicago kind of situation? Although the Torts hiring would kind of make me feel like that's not it, but
I'm gonna be honest with you, no. And even when they were like really bad, if you remember, like they should have gotten Patrick Kane. They were the worst team in the league that year, and that was back in the day. But they ended up getting JVR, who's still on the team, his second go around. But I will say this: I don't think you're gonna see a team in the Metro, maybe much less the NHL, that works their sacks off more than this team.
Oh yeah,
John Tortorella is going to make them. I mean, you guys saw that for years with the Blue Jackets, almost overachieving with what they had on their roster. Maybe besides the 1 year they had Duchesne and Panarin and all those guys. But other than that, I mean, the Blue Jackets were like a way better team with Torts. I know, the Dubois thing didn't work out at the end. But you know what? Players and coaches, after a while, there's a shelf life for all of them.
Yeah, his teams always overachieve, for sure.
For sure.
There is one thing. So, like, again, the Tortorella hiring, I'm not really curious. I'm wondering if this is like they can't afford to rebuild. But let's say things go terrible again. Their cap situation isn't as bleak as it maybe once was, because next year you're going to lose JVR's contract, so that's $7 million off the books right there. Hayes at 7.1, obviously still expensive. That Rasmus Ristolainen one at 5.1. I mean, as the years go along, is going to get awfully tough. But like they've got a few guys that they're going to have to figure out. Morgan Frost is going to be an RFA next year. He'll definitely get a.
Him and Tippett need to step it up this year. That's the one thing that the Frost was the big hype around him, kind of like Farabee, but he just hasn't really turned into what I think they thought he would turn into. And I will say, going back to what you kind of said about, are they allowed to rebuild? No, if Comcast, the owners, after Ed Snyder passed away, they literally said, like, we will do whatever it takes. We'll do this. That was why it was so funny that they didn't do whatever it took to get Gaudreau. That's the craziest thing ever.
It is wild. So, given all of that, also Cam York looks to be like a really good defenseman.
Yeah.
I've caught a few Flyers games of him, and he actually looks like he might be pretty good. And D'Angelo is an extremely good on the ice defenseman. All the outsider stuff. Be damned. Carter Hart, he needs to play at a .915 save percentage at least, and this is like the Chicago Bears in the NFL and quarterbacks. How they've never been able to find a goaltender, like a franchise just simply unable to find one position for 3 decades is wild to me. Like,
it's really crazy.
It's
like you go back to our childhood, they had some really good teams in the late 90s, early 2000s that were
is average.
Brian Boucher, Roman Czechmanic, and then they missed out on Bobrovsky, right?
So they had him and chased him out of town. They chased him out of town. Like, I don't know. It's wild to me. It always makes me laugh because it's the same thing with Chicago and quarterbacks. They just, for whatever reason, cannot find that position. So that being said, guys, give me a 1 to 8 where you guys think they're gonna finish this regular season. This is harder than I think.
Kessy, you go first.
The Torts thing makes it hard.
I could see like a 5 to 8 range. I really could. Like I think this division's wide open in those like bottom 3 to 4 spots, and they could overachieve.
My 8, I think, is going to shock some of you guys. So I will say they will. God, I really don't believe in the Devils. I will say they finish 6th. I will say they finished 6th in the division, which is, man, the Metro last year going into it looked incredible. Like, it was stacked, and now it's like not nearly as formidable when you think about it.
Yeah, I think they'll finish 6th.
You're gonna go 6th too? Okay, I thought that was a hot take by me. Okay, what about you, Kesso?
I'll go 7. Okay. I had them in the 5 to 8 range. I'll go 7.
Okay. Yeah. All right. On to the New Jersey Devils, who I joke about. They are one first overall pick away from being the 09 to 2012 Edmonton Oilers, because they have been getting bailed out left and right by winning the lottery, and every year they land the big free agent in Dougie Hamilton. Doesn't matter. They still find a way to finish in the bottom, and I hate the fact that they won the lottery the way, because Jack Hughes looks like the real deal. Let's just start there. Let's start with Jack Hughes. He looks like, especially going into last year, he did get hurt, but he looked incredible in the games that he played.
Yeah, Kessa, do you agree that Jack Hughes, he's like a mini Patrick Kane? The way he looks, the way he skates.
Yeah, for sure. And they made that extension prior to him having that, right?
That's a great contract.
Exactly. Like I think if they had to redo that, like right now, he's 10 to
It's
12, right?
close. He's probably getting
Yeah.
like McCarr money, like
He
close
needs
to
to stay
that.
healthy for a full season. You know, that's the big thing for him is health, and who knows where they go. I don't know. I'm sorry, but I still don't feel very confident in this team. When they added Vitek Vanacek as their goalie,
That's
and they
it.
have him with Blackwood, I have no confidence in their goaltenders. Now, if Blackwood turns into what he did like pre-COVID, maybe. It's a really weird team. Adding Palat, which our boy Jeff Merrick loves to call Mini Mary and Hossa, I do love Palat. I don't know. And then I kind of just wonder like,
But
will
the
Nemec
Palat
make the team?
one, that's a no movement clause, right? Is it modified or
Yeah.
what is
No,
it?
it's
And
it's one
that's
of those ones where like the back end of it is going to be tough to
Yeah.
swallow because the given their prospect pool, which is one of if not the best in the NHL right now,
sure.
like they are going to be very good within the next couple years, and like those contracts, like the Palat one, are the ones that where it's going to be like, awfully tough. So I think like Jesper Bratt might be one of the most underrated players in the NHL right now.
No, for sure. And I think he'll get signed like a little bit into camp. It's one of those kind of contracts where I mean they're not gonna like lose him or he's not gonna like end up not playing because of it. I mean,
He's getting five. I think he got 5-4-5, and I don't know if that was arbitration. I think it was
yeah.
close. I think it might have gone to arbitration. I don't.
Yeah, they got him in the R, but they went to arbitration. But like I think like next year, it's one of those things like they'll lock him up like long term because he's a real solid player. I mean, he's only like 24 years old, so
What man? It's wild to me that Goudreau did not want to go there. Like that's one that's so confusing to me, and just because like he's from there, like that, like you know what I mean, like that one, and they tried, like they were giving him like I think they were giving him more than what the Blue Jackets offered. No.
from what I understand about that whole thing was, I'm gonna be dead honest with you, and sorry, Blue Jackets fans out there, top shelf cookie Nasher, I'm gonna offend you guys a little bit. It sounded like from the people that are in the know, he went to Columbus because they offered the most money in American dollars, taxes, you name it, the whole 9 yards. It ended up being the most.
Yeah.
The thing with New Jersey, I think that maybe why they like struck out on him, maybe because everyone's like, oh, he wants to go closer to home. I think it was one of those things where it's like it wasn't Philly at the end of the day. And if he wasn't going to sign in Philly, he wanted to maybe not be as close. I've heard him say that a few times too. It wasn't as close to home, but it's still close to
Yeah, it's
home
still close.
because it's like you guys know, like with in-laws and stuff like that, and just with your family. I mean, especially when you're a superstar like that, you're gonna have people bugging you all the time. He has a house on the Jersey Shore in Avalon, and he even said like, "Oh, my buddies just walk in whenever they want in the summertime." It's
Yeah.
like you don't want to be dealing with that during an 82 game season.
That's true. They get Simon Nemec at second overall. I think
That'll be interesting to see if he makes the team.
yeah,
I'm
like
curious to see what
their
happens.
decor is low key kind of gross now. Like I think that
Their right side is stacked.
yeah, Dougie
Yes.
Hamilton, Marino, they get Marino this year in that weird Ty Smith trade, which I low key think it worked out well for the Penguins is because they needed cap space and they got like a younger defenseman. But weird because he was a season removed from getting Calder votes.
So John Marino had that amazing rookie year. I don't want to say like he regressed, but like he didn't make the progress that they probably expected.
Still currently a better defenseman than Ty Smith though.
Oh, for sure. But I wonder, like, I mean, the Penguins made that trade years back with Oli Mata, to where it was like puzzling. So I wonder if this is going to be something similar. But like, I like John Marino. I hope he's really good there, and that could work out really well for them.
Yeah, no, I think that's that right side. I think you were right on that. Like that was an extremely just good trade for I think for both. But yeah, you're right. Severson, Marino, and Dougie Hamilton is a phenomenal right side, and then you've got Ryan Graves, Siegenthaler, who was fantastic. Got that new contract extension going for 1.1 to 3.4. And then they've got Brandon Smith as well. But Nemec, I think, will fall in there somewhere. Severson's a UFA next season, so maybe he just kind of replaces him next year. That goaltending is going to be awfully difficult. And then obviously depth scoring, I think, is still going to be a major issue for the Devils. If they lose Hughes at any point in the season, kind of reminds me of like Minnesota in the sense that they were to lose Kaprizov. So I think that they need to be better this year. If they're not, like it's I'm not sure. Like I think I'm really not sure what they would need to do to get that fixed. So where do you guys think that they would that they'll land?
I think 8th place.
8th? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You think they finish bottom of the? Could you imagine they get Bedard? Like that would be a team I would not like. I could not stand if they got Bedard.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
Just because they shouldn't. Like you know what I mean? Like they should be good.
You know what's funny about the Devils is even just it might be because of my childhood. They're just so freaking boring to watch.
It is tough to watch. I know it's like we're so
Everything
long
about
removed from
the
that,
Rock is like like it's just you went there sleeves in person. You went to the arena. It's just like boring. Like when you're watching on TV, there's a few teams I'll watch. I'm like, man, the atmosphere is just boring. The jerseys are boring. The team's boring. And like Jack Hughes is the one thing on the team that I want to watch. You know.
I will say this: watching Jack Hughes. So the game I went to last year, every time Jack Hughes has the puck, it's really fun. Like he is going to be like one of the better players in the NHL. I'll say this: like I wasn't the arena area obviously is tough, and then like the concourse and stuff might be one of the worst in the league. The atmosphere once you're in the bowl is low key kind of sick, but yeah, the rest of it was a little tough, but. I think they will finish 7th in the Metro, so not 8th, but right behind the Flyers. And Kessler, where do you think they're gonna go?
Yeah, I'll go 8 just because I have Philly at I think it was 6, so I'm gonna go them with 8.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, moving on to our next team is the Columbus Johnny Gaudreaus. All right, so Columbus coming in at number 6 last year with 81 points in 82 games. Another disappointing year for Columbus. Talk me through the additions there for the Blue Jackets, Padre.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've already touched on Goudreau. That was the big, fish out there. Which to like the minutes coming down to it, I never thought in a million years he'd end up there. I remember just getting a few texts from a few of the insiders. I remember telling you about this, Sleeves, and they just kept sending me the cannons, and I'm like, there's no way he's gonna go to Columbus.
Yeah.
But I'm happy for the Jackets fans. The big thing for them is, and obviously they landed Gabranson, which I think we all agree they overpaid for that, but it is what it is. You need guys like that on your back end, and he obviously, he raised his value a bunch last year under Daryl Sutter, playing with Zadorov, and very sheltered role, but it worked out really well for him. I'm happy for the Jackets fans though, because you got some guys like some hometown boys like Corrali and Roslovich, and they actually want to play there. That was the big thing for years, obviously, is they were losing those guys because no one wanted to play in Columbus. Well, now you have guys staying there. You have a guy like Gaudreau coming in. I don't think Gaudreau signing there gets rid of the whole narrative every star now wants to go to these places. No, it was just I think it was just the perfect storm. And you got to remember, only so many teams can afford these guys. There's not a bunch of teams with the cap space. They had the cap space. They wanted to spend the money. They did it. And I think, Kent Johnson is the big, what's going to happen with him? Who is going to play center for Gaudreau and Laine? That's the big question mark for me this year with those guys,
Let me ask you this. So the Gabranson signing earlier in the day, because I remember it happened early. Brutal. I think that I don't know if we can all agree, but I think it's one of the worst signings in terms of cap hit.
Even Nasher hated it.
Yeah,
he loves everything Jackets.
It just seemed like $2 million over what it would be expected.
Yeah.
Now the Gaudreau thing happened out of nowhere, later in the day, right? And do you think that had they gone into the deadline actually thinking they could get him, that maybe they don't sign him? Because it makes it way worse because they added Gaudreau's $9 million.
I don't know.
They had to lose Bjorkstrand though. That's a big loss because he was a great value contract, secondary scorer. That was a great pickup by Seattle.
I mean, logically, what you just outlined doesn't make sense, right? Why you would, if you knew you were going to get Gaudreau, why you would do the Goodbranson signing?
Yeah.
Especially at that 4. So I don't know.
It's tough. That I'm so curious because I remember same thing. Even just on Twitter and whatnot, Madre. It just seemed like that was out of nowhere because it was everyone just assumed Philly. Everyone expected Philly to be in, and it was down to Philly, the Islanders, and the Devils. The only ones that that Philly didn't actually be involved in was the actual team.
Right.
So I don't know. I just wonder because that was tough. Laine gets his contract at 8.7. It'll be real. That'll be one of the more fun lines to watch. I think that.
Oh yeah.
That would be. I think that'll just be really really fun. So
because Gaudreau's a passer at the end of the day. I mean, yeah, he scores and stuff, but that's what he's known for is his passing. And I mean, obviously his edge work's phenomenal too. But I'm curious to see if they. if they'll get the goaltending. I know everyone loves Merzlikins, because he's funny and stuff on like Instagram or whatever. But like Korpisalo, I think that's the value contract right
That's
there.
not bad. Korpisalo's good.
And I think he's out to prove something this year. I mean, the fact that I think they're paying him like 1.3 million.
Yeah,
that guy was a stud against the Leafs in that series in the bubble. And I know it's the bubble. I get it's not like, it wasn't like the real thing, but it still, I mean, you're still stopping hockey pucks against
absolutely. Where do you see the Blue Jackets landing?
7th. That's where I think.
You think they finish 7th?
I don't think they have the depth, and then I don't think they have the goaltending. Or I don't think they have the back end.
I think they finish 5th. I think they finish 5th. I think they improve a little bit. They had 81 points last year. I think they get to the 90 mark. I think that their offense is just it's. I don't know. It's something about Columbus. I think it'll just be. I think the Metro is a little bit weaker than last year, and I don't know. I think they might take advantage of that. I'm gonna say Columbus gets to 5th.
That's I think that's optimistic. I mean, I had them at 7th. I think they're gonna be a fun team to watch, but they're gonna lose a lot of games 5-3 or something, and then they're one injury away from just not being a good team.
That's true. Where do you think they land, Kelso?
7.
Okay, 7. All right, fair enough. Now on to number 5, the New York Islanders. Who, man, this is Lou is just. I don't know if this is like a it's very difficult to stay in the league this long and be like the master general manager, and you just don't adapt. But it just seems that like Lou doesn't have it anymore. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if Islanders fans are listening. Let me know if I'm way off base. But like this offseason was brutal for the Islanders.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, they struck out on Gaudreau. Apparently, they were sniffing around. Thing is, you never know like what Lou's up to. That's the problem too. So it's hard to be like, oh, I mean, he could pull off something before the season starts. I have no clue. It's just the thing with him. He's always pilfering around doing something. And I guess they were involved with the Gaudreau stuff. Obviously, it didn't happen. But, the small thing, like adding Romanov, I still think that was like a good move at the draft. You were obviously there, sleeves for that. Yep. I think Romanov, I mean, that was like their weakness last year was their back end. So being able to add him, and I think like the biggest thing for the Islanders is just health. Like last year, they were so banged up. If you remember,
the COVID
they started
was really bad.
Yeah, well, they got screwed on the COVID because that was at the time of the year where like they were shutting down, or they were picking and choosing kind of like who they were shutting down and not shutting down, and they had to kind of play through it. And the one thing I will say about the Islanders too is they started on the road last year because of the arena.
When I went there, they had like a 14-game homestand because the UBS wasn't ready at the start of the year. Dude, they went like 0-9 to start like their time at UBS. It's a castle, by the way. For anyone that gets a chance to go to an Islander game, that is by far the best arena I've been to. I will be going to Vegas in October, so maybe that will change my mind. But like, it is insane. That thing is gigantic. So.
Are you guys going to a Knights game out there?
Oh yeah, on the Friday.
You have to.
Exactly. I saw it. And I was like, yeah. We're going.
It'll be the greatest in-game sporting, like hockey-wise. It's the best in the league. I've been to Toronto. Leafs fans, I don't want to hear it.
Toronto in the playoffs is different, but
I've been in the playoffs, right? But
dude, Leafs fans consistently. I think there's the comment the one time you're just going to be the most hated person on here, Padre, for the time moving forward.
Dude, yeah.
I'm from St. Louis, so it's not even like I hate the Leafs. I just get sick of the slobbering over things that aren't even like that true.
The one thing I'll add about the Islanders too, when you look at their cap situation, it's like a ton of secondary scoring that's all signed to like those gross contracts, like the $5 million contracts that the non-first line players get. Those are the ones that usually end up biting you because they don't return value and they have to be signed kind of at like their peak or whatever. But Palmieri getting another 5 for 3 years. You have Anders Lee at 7 for another 4. Brock Nelson has 6 for 3. Josh Bailey has 5 for 2 more years. Like, it is, there's no, other than Matthew Barzal, who's an RFA next year, who, I mean, like, what would you think his number comes in at? 8.5?
I'll go, no. Yeah, 8.7, 8.5 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be it. So something's got to come off the books, and really, there's no.
We'll see how they play with a new coach now, because obviously Lane Lambert is their coach, and Trotz is out, so it's going to be all.
Trotz is huge.
That's like their biggest loss. I mean, in terms of like defensively, like I said, I really believe last year they would have. I mean, this is the same team that went to the conference finals 2 years in a row, and it's just that's why I'm like optimistic on them this year if they have health. They're a good team. I know people are down on them because they love to, they're not sexy, right?
Yeah, they're not. Sorokin could like be a dark horse for the Vezina too. Like he's
unreal.
He might
He's
ascend.
unreal.
Yeah, like he is going to be one of the best like 5 goaltenders in the NHL sooner rather than later. I have the Islanders finishing 8th. I legitimately think the wheels fall off.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. What do you think, Kessa?
Dude, I got them at 4. I mean, you still have year-over-year roster consistency with this team, which I think is valuable. So yeah, I'm gonna go 4. I think they're gonna be better than that.
Couldn't tell you why. Got like just I don't know. Maybe it's just like me following the lack of hype, but I just don't like love their roster in this sense. I think that I do think the Flyers might finish higher, but I'm gonna say Islanders 8th. What about you? Padre?
I'll say they finish 3rd.
Wow. Okay. Make the playoffs. All right. We are all.
I like
over the
that
place.
one.
I
like that one.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay.
I have a problem with like Philly, Wash, or not Philly, Wash, Pitt, Wash, and the Islanders.
I have that too. I have that because that could go one of 2 ways. So we'll go number 4. Right. The Washington Capitals, one of the 4 playoff teams. They had 100 points last year. Everyone in the Eastern Conference, by the way, had 100 points. Which, it's the first. I think this might have been last season. Might have been the best Eastern Conference compared to the Western Conference in my lifetime watching hockey. Like for the majority of my life, the West was always better than the East. Not the Cup, like obviously that Eastern Conference teams win the Cup, but it was always like the West just kind of had like a better top end teams. But man, everyone had 100 points last year, which is just super impressive. So Washington, let's see who's in and out in Washington. Kemper, they get their goaltender after Ovi just told Samsonov to leave. After that huge gaffe in the playoffs, he just told him to get out, and Samsonov went to the worst goalie market that you could possibly go to. And Dylan Strome, they sniped him up when Chicago was like, we just need Bedard. So that could be another decent signing, and then they still have Ovechkin. I want to start this. Does Ovechkin break the record, and how many does he get this year? Kessler, you go first.
He breaks the record 100%. He's not going to retire until he doesn't. I'm going to say 52.
That's absurd. I like. It's crazy.
I know. I'm gonna say 52 this year.
Padre?
Yeah, he'll break it. I think he'll score 47 this year.
Man, like this is like the hockey version of Tom Brady. It's way more impressive, not in the championship part, but like the day-to-day what he's got to do. Because like age crushes you as a hockey player. Like it's very difficult. And man, yeah, I don't know. It's wild because I don't see how anyone. I mean, Matthews might. I don't know how anyone would. Like, it's one of those records. I thought that everyone thought that would never be broken because it's so absurd. Point totals just don't happen like that anymore, and goals obviously.
Yeah, but we're going on 16 years now where they've been running the same power play almost. He's been open for 16 years. Like, there's no stopping him.
It's just so
he
wild.
has the best shot of all time.
It is.
Like I don't know how he does it.
He just absolutely pinpoints that corner. Like it is gross with that.
I'm excited to see Connor Brown too play for them because he's always been one of those solid players, and I'm really curious to see what happens with Nick Backstrom because I know there's like a lot of rumors that some of his injuries are becoming pretty debilitating for him. And a guy like that's like done it all, won a cup. Tons of money. What else does he have to prove at this point? I'm kind of curious to see. I think it comes down for them. The big thing for me is the goaltending. I know Darcy Kemper won the cup. But let's be honest. I think I could have won a game in the net this year in the regular season.
Sure.
I'm being dead honest, and I'm not even being cocky. That team was so good that the Avalanche that like they could outscore like
series, which is
bad goaltending. Yeah,
toyed with, dude.
It was a joke. I don't know. I'm excited for Charlie Lindgren because he had 3 games in St. Louis. He went 3. And like the fans here like loved him, but he never could get like an actual like backup job here because of Billy and Benner. But I'm excited to see because they gave him a one-way $1.1 million 3-year deal, which that's like they're relying on him. Like that's their backup. And just to see that, they don't really have a safety net for Kemper per se, it'll be kind of crazy. And I think Kuzi last year rebounding was big for them too, because Kuznetsov,
they wanted him out too. Like there was,
he was like Tarasenko, not for the same reasons, but it was like one of those things where, it was like public, like, they're going to get rid of him. They're going to get rid of him. He never left, ended up having a good year, and now, he's technically their first line center. So
No, exactly. Also, when you look at their cap situation too, next year, half their five of their, well, actually all except for one, John Carlson, comes off the books on the back end, which is like, that's a solid potential for a reset. Like they're gonna have so much money available, and the only forwards up front that are signed: Ovechkin at 9.5, Kuznetsov at 7.8, Oshie at 5.5, and Mantha at 5.7, which I think might be. I mean, that's I guess. I think he might get close to that on the open market, but like they're gonna have a ton of cap space to see what they can deal with, and again, we'll find out what happens with Nicholas Backstrom. There was major rumors that they were gonna push for Malkin, and that just would have been. I think that would have been so much fun to see. Like Malkin this year with Ovechkin.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. I couldn't imagine that, but yeah.
It's like one of those stupid like jersey like swaps like you see on
It's
Twitter.
one of those dumb like be a GM mode
Yeah.
things you would do on NHL 08.
Where do you see Washington landing?
Essa?
I got them at 3. I think they'll be really good. I hope to see them do well. Like I'm not one of those like biased fans that I want to see Ovechkin do well every single year. It's fun as a hockey fan, so I hope to see 3.
I think they'll finish 5th.
That Backstrom thing, when you look at their like depth chart, it like takes a bit of a hit. Like,
They're old, man. They're old.
They are getting up there.
Ovi might be old and he might produce, but the other guys aren't getting younger and they're not producing the same as Ovi. Ovi's like Paul Bissonnette calls him, he's a farm animal. I wouldn't be surprised if you see this upcoming offseason, which I know is crazy to even say. I mean, do they make a run, at Vladimir Tarasenko? Is David Pastrnak available? Do they bring in like another Russian with Vladdy there? There's some good free agents.
They have infinite money. Like I said, they lose over half their team next year.
Right.
Like, all of their contracts come up. So like they can do a major reset.
Right.
No prospect pool though at all. Like McMichael, who I got to watch for London when he played the Dogs when he was in London, really good player. But like I think he's going to be like a third liner in the NHL probably. But I will say Washington. Oh man, I will say Washington finishes 4th and they miss the playoffs. No, they'll only be 3 from the Metro in the playoffs for me. What about Kessa? What did you say?
I said 3.
Okay, perfect. All right, 3.
Yeah.
All right, on to well, you can't talk about Washington without Pittsburgh. They finished 3rd last year, 103 points. Berkey comes in and is just like, they absolutely have to win now. I gotta respect them. They remind me so much of the like 2015 to 2018 Sharks, where Thornton and Marlowe were getting up there and they were like, we just have to keep going until they can't go anymore, because you're never going to win a trade and you're never going to get better if you let them go and sign someone else. So there was a second there where it looked like Malkin and Letang weren't going to sign, and there was reports that Crosby like threw a fit. Like I don't know if you saw that.
So,
I believe it was an Athletic report where it was just like Crosby was like absolutely not okay with losing them. And they're owned by the same guys that own like the Red Sox, and they are very analytic driven, which I guess is why Letang and Malkin aren't super good when you take a look at the analytics, which I think is a problem with analytics in hockey. But yeah, they're like that. And again, the Red Sox didn't sign Mookie Betts, so it was like maybe they don't want to keep them, but I'm glad they did keep them, because Crosby is like the same trajectory as Tom Brady. I know I compared Ovechkin to him, with like as he gets older and just stays in the league, I garner more respect for him, because
100%. He always reinvents himself in some way every season with something new he adds to his game. He's such a solid two-way player now, where earlier in his career you couldn't say that, right? And there's just no slowing down. Like, he's still amazing. I would still take him over everybody in the league besides maybe 1 to 2 players if I was doing like a best of 7 in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, playoff performer is one of the best. It's terrifying, and the one thing about Crosby is like, it's at a situation where like, man, one more hit, and that could be like it for one of the greatest players ever, because he's already done it all, right? Like, that's the scary part. If he hadn't won a cup, maybe we see like, like the years where maybe he continues just to play on, but man, like he has nothing left to prove. And I'm curious where, like, he's not going to get... When Ovechkin breaks Gretzky's record, like those two have always been linked, and Crosby has a better points per game like by quite a bit because I believe he's missed like almost 200 games compared to Ovechkin. They have about the same. They're like 1-1. Like they switch like every night in terms of points. But man, like I don't know because Crosby's gonna finish behind, like obviously way behind Gretzky. But I'm so curious where he finishes his career. Like 1,500 points would be nuts. Like in this day and
Yeah,
age.
for sure. And it all depends. Like I could see him playing till he's 42 or 43 with just like his hockey IQ, right? Like he's still going to be an effective player. Like his next contract, what? He'll be like 38, I think.
He's gonna be
39.
one
I
of the
forget the age.
best deals
Yeah.
ever because of when he
Yeah,
kept coming up.
so like he's going to be 38, 39. He'll sign a team-friendly deal because he's that type of person. I want to see him play until his early 40s just because I think he's one of those guys that can do it.
Absolutely, I think so as well. All right, so let's take like in terms of like additions and subtractions for Pitt. They re-signed Raquel, who I believe they got at the deadline. Kapanen's back, and then obviously Malkin and Letang. I think that with Burke and with Brian Burke in charge, basically, as long as you have Malkin and Crosby, you just keep going for it. Eventually, it will run out. Crosby has saved them from having awful prospect pools because every random AHLer that they just throw up there ends up being Brian Rust or like, you know what I mean? Like it's
So I will say that yeah, they've had a bad prospect pool, but they've really been good at getting some of those like college players like in the past that have just like you said, I don't know if Brian Rust is one of them, like Jake Gensel, right? Like he is even whenever he plays without Crosby, like he's an amazing player. So I think he's proven himself to not be just because he's playing on Crosby's wing. He's a 40 goal scorer in the NHL. It makes no sense to me because I look at him, play and I'm like, I don't know what skill he has, but he's just always in the right spot.
they have low key like a really really good decor. I think Padre. I mean, they added a few. Talk to me a little about the guys they added on defense.
Yeah, obviously they added Jeff Petrie. I mean, there's no way he'll be as bad as he was at Montreal, last year. I think Pittsburgh's a place too where it reminds me of like almost like the Cardinals in baseball, where people come at the end of their careers or older guys, and you sprinkle a little pixie dust on them, and all of a sudden they're playing good again. You know what I mean? It's I can just see Petrie like lightening it up again, and adding Jan Ruda, and obviously Ty Smith. We already talked about that earlier with Marino, but Jan Ruda was like so solid for the Bolts in their cup runs, and I just feel like that's a solid addition on the back end of Pitt. And I want to see what happens too up front with Ryan Poehling, because if you guys remember, I think they had that hat trick game in Montreal. He was a beast. The World Juniors.
He looked like the next thing.
Right, and you never know. I mean, like Kessa said, for years you see these guys get thrown with Crosby or get thrown with Gino, and all of a sudden they're making a name for themselves. So
I think that this year their roster construction. Last year obviously they were on their third string goaltender in the playoffs. But man, their decor: Petrie, Letang, Dumoulin, Marcus Pettersson, Jan Ruda, Ty Smith, and they still have Rubenel. Like that's a solid decor all the way through. And if Crosby and Malkin can stay healthy, which I think might be like that's not like an easy ask, but good secondary scoring with Raquel and Zucker. So I don't know. I think I have Pittsburgh finishing second. I think that this will be the last great year for Pittsburgh, and I think that the subsequent years we'll start seeing the drop off a little bit. What do you say, Kesso?
So I have them at number 1. I'm going to go full homer here. So just a couple points to add. That Ty Smith one, that reminds me of Justin Schultz whenever they acquired him 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
If you guys remember, Justin Schultz is like he's awful, like minus 40 for a player. Penguins have a great way historically the last 10 to 15 years of getting these defensemen that people were like scared of or like they might not want. And they give them sheltered minutes. They look amazing, maybe second power play unit. So that's somebody that could jump like right into that role, right? It all depends just on the goaltending. I think the Penguins were a better team than the Rangers last year. They were a better team than the Islanders the year before. Last year, I'm just unfortunate with the injury to Yari. And then who's the backup? I can't remember right now. But then
Smith.
he was in.
But Louis Domingue.
Louis Domingue went in. So it all comes down to goaltending for that. I could see him finishing first, though. I'm going to go number 1.
All right, I like it.
I'm going to say fourth, but like I told you earlier, 3 or 4, I could see them flip-flopping with the Islanders. Like, I think they're going to battle with the Islanders. Like I said, the Penguins are too good, like of a team to miss the playoffs. I feel like, but I could see them missing because of like what Kessa said, the goaltending. I don't know. I want to see Jari do it again, and it's just like I don't know if Father Time catches up, not to Crosby per se, but Malkin or
Malkin is definitely seen
Letang.
his,
It's tough to say with those older guys. That's why I say like Washington. I'm not confident with them because of that same reason.
Number 2, the New York Rangers. Now, I will say, I don't like when they were talking at for like Hart Trophy. Obviously, like with what McDavid was doing, it was it's tough because it's like you're always gonna just have him as like if they remove them from the Oilers, like it'd be ridiculous. Man, when you looked, I watched for whatever reason a lot of Rangers games. When Shesterkin dragged this team into the playoffs. And then they rode an extremely insane shooting percentage from Chris Kreider, which will just never be replicated. I think we can all agree that he's not going to put up 40 this year.
Not a chance.
You bet like that was absurd. That being said, Shesterkin is the best goaltender in the NHL. I'd probably take Vazzy if I had a playoff series, just because it's Vasilevsky. But I think that he is number 2, and after this season, wouldn't surprise me if he is like the just consensus number 1. And when you have the best goaltender in the league, that can make up for some issues. Talk to me a little bit about their additions and subtractions, though, Padre.
Yeah, I really do like the fact they added Vinny Trocheck, and I think that's the reason why. Like you'll hear this in a few minutes, but I think I still think they'll finish second, just because they had such a young team too, and they did what they did last year. I think that was such a good learning experience for them last year, even though they lost to the Lightning. And I just feel like with the emergence of Keandre Miller, and you had like the kid line with Hedel and Kako and Lafreniere, and it's like those kind of guys just having that valuable experience, and they're all under those deals still where they have the cheap deals and they can flourish. I don't know. I just don't see how they don't stay second. And Zibanejad, he actually was like struggling last year if you remember in the beginning of the year. So the fact that he struggled, they still were this good. Shesterkin's that good. That's why I feel pretty confident with them again. And I will say, losing Georgiev, I don't know how much that'll really affect them.
He wasn't extreme. Like I think he was 15 and 13 in the games that he played. Like that's what I mean by Shesterkin. Without him, like it was pretty nuts.
And they're adding my boy Sammy Blais back in the lineup. That guy he lays bodies out. I think that's one thing.
Though.
For sure.
Yeah, Buchnevich is
on. That's just a cap casualty, honestly. Yeah. It happens. I will say though, like that's the big difference from that team from like the year before last year was when I told all those crazy Rangers fans on Twitter, like they were all freaking out. Like let's say Nippin' Biscuits for anybody that plays NHL. They're all freaking out about their team. The thing is, Goudreau Cup winner, Sammy Blais Cup winner, Ryan Reeves. Great fourth liner. They add that sandpaper and that grit. You could tell it helped a lot last year.
Oh no, for sure. I think that they will ride or die if Lafreniere and Capo Caco don't become like either bottom end first liners or top end second liners. I think it's going to be tough for them to do better. I think there'll be some regression because I think they overperformed. Just again, analytically, they were not like an extremely great team. Again, I think Shesterkin makes up for like a majority of it, and nothing's going to change there. I think that they are still young and they will get better. But I have them finishing third. I think they finished third this year. I think Pittsburgh, as long as everyone stays healthy in Pittsburgh, that decor is just really, really good. But I have them finishing third. What about you said 2, Padre?
Yeah.
And Kesso?
My bold prediction, I guess, of the podcast. I have 5. I don't like this team, dude. Padre, how you feel about the Leafs fans? That's how I feel about the Rangers fans.
Yeah. Rangers fans are like known though as to be like the worst follow on social media. They're the Cowboys of the NHL.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go 5. I hope Shesterkin regresses. I hope this team, like you said, Sleeves. When you looked at the numbers last year, they weren't a great 5-on-5 team. They had the insane shooting percentage plus Shesterkin. So like, I don't know how they'd have to get a lot better from last year, right?
Yeah, like that.
Which they can. I think they have the young pieces. They can. They have the young pieces, but I hope to see 5. So I'm going with 5.
Okay, respect. All right, last is number 1, which would be the Hurricanes. One of Man, a great offseason. I'm glad to see it for the Hurricanes because I like seeing smaller markets like go for it when they have the opportunity to. I think that like that's good for the game of hockey. Carolina, they get Brent Burns. He is. I think it's great for Burns because I hope that he is not a first line player, and if he doesn't have to be a first line player, I think it's going to be really fun to watch him there. The big one, man, is Pacioretty for nothing. Like they just. I don't know how all the other teams in the NHL. I mean, they ended up the injury. Pacioretty ended up getting hurt afterwards. But that trade, I don't know how Vegas, how anyone else wasn't all over that. But they get Pacioretty. They have Burns. They had Stastny, Dzingel, and Coughlin from Vegas. That's huge in my opinion, right, Padre?
Yeah, I really love everything about this team. I feel like they would have went to the conference finals if they hadn't had the injury in net with Anderson. He was really good this year. Being able to go to like a smaller market like that, not having the Toronto media down your neck, I really think that helped him a lot. And they just have so many good young players, and their contracts are great. I mean, the fact that Aho yeah, I mean Aho's only making 8.4, and yeah, Marty Necas. I mean. And they added Andre Kasha. They just have like a lot of like low end contracts that always produce, like Paul Stastny at 1.5 million. That guy is like a Swiss Army knife. I've watched him for years. He's so good, and I know that I love the decor. Jacob Slavin is just so underrated.
Oh
still.
yeah,
he's so good.
He reminds me of Vlasic. Like back,
yeah,
he's so good defensively that but he doesn't get enough love. Like he is one of the best defensemen in the NHL. I totally agree there. Yep. Do you have them finishing first?
Yeah, I have them finishing first.
I do as well. I'm assuming 2 for you, Kezo?
Yeah, that's where it falls, right? I love how this team's built. I'm excited to see Brent Burns in another jersey. I know he played a little bit in Minnesota, but it's so weird. Like, I mean, he's a San Jose Shark, so I'm excited to see who's going to be knocking in those deflections that he, 15 shot attempts from him from the blue line a game.
I don't know. Maybe Kotkaniemi. Like, I don't know. Maybe I have no idea. It's just gonna be fun. I am happy to see him go somewhere, and they've got the Stadium Series game. I might actually be at the Stadium Series game, so I'm excited to go out there and see a game in Carolina. But no, I think obviously it was tough losing D'Angelo. Again, not the off the ice stuff aside, but Burns is a very similar replacement. Like I think that even at this stage, he's not good defensively. But he drives the play. Like he will,
Yeah.
And Trocheck is a tough loss as well. But if Pacioretty can come back, like that's a huge for nothing. They got him for nothing. Like just a very, very good team. But all right, guys. So that is going to do it for our Metro Division preview. We've got one more preview on the horizon, the Atlantic Division with everyone.
That's an exciting one.
Bro, Montreal, Toronto. We get to piss off like the entire on the province of Ontario and Quebec, which is just awesome. But yeah. Nonetheless, thank you guys for listening and watching. Guys, anything else?
No, I think that's it. Oh,
don't worry, everybody in the comments. We're going to fix the little bar on the side. I know everyone's thinking like the highlighter is going to drop down. We will have it eventually. It's going to get dialed in. We're all good. I know we had some people.
This is the preseason, man.
This is the preseason. We're working out all the kinks. Absolutely. But it'll be all good. It looks great. Sleazy's doing a great job with the stuff right now.
You guys are being great co-hosts. And guys, thank you. You've been great listeners. So thank you for watching or listening to Coffee and Chel. And we'll be back next week with the Atlantic Division preview. See you guys then.